Hello, everyone, and welcome to Zobrio University's ZAI webinar on Assignable Cashbook Views. Today, we have Rob Raymond, the Executive Vice President here at Zobrio, to lead the webinar. If you have any questions, please leave in the chat, which is located at the bottom of your screen, and we will go over all questions at the end. Thank you, and I'll now hand over to Rob.
Thank you, Colleen, and welcome to our session. As Colleen mentioned, this is on Assignable Cashbook Views. So we're going to dig right into the software and walk through how to build views, how to share them to your stakeholders, and why that can be useful, and how the ability exists to control right down to the finest level what people can see and how they can analyze their receipts, disbursements, and the like. So the way we're going to begin is I'm going to set up two users. One we're going to call stakeholder A, and the second will be the main user, whoever that would be, whoever has permissions, treasurer, accountant, or a group of people that have permissions to set up views and assign views. So just so that we understand what a very typical, basic, remote user experience looks like, I'm going to log in right now, just briefly, to what I would call a remote user. So in our example here, this is stakeholder A. And as you can see, stakeholder A simply has one tab. It's receipt entry. Their job would be to record receipts, whether it be from accepting imported receipts from a payment portal or entering receipts in detail or summary themselves. They would have history of all the receipts that they went into, the ability to maintain payers, and then they would be able to enter these receipts and pass them along to the person that would review and accept them. So what we're going to do is we're now going to log in as the main user, and we're going to see how this experience for the remote user, stakeholder A, changes. So I'm going to log out, and I'm going to come back in as our main user. And now you can see that we will have the full set of tabs, as well as the full set of permissions within those tabs. So here I am in the Cashbook, put some information in. And for those of you familiar with the Cashbook, there's a lot of information. In fact, the full database is represented in this view, a view that we call view all columns. So we're looking right now at all columns. So if you want to create a view that you can provide to your remote user, in our example today, stakeholder A, you have the ability to manipulate this view so that you're providing access to only the information that pertains to stakeholder A. That information is not something that stakeholder A can add, change, or delete. So they will not have the add entry button at the bottom of the grid. They will simply have the ability to review the data that you provide them and make subviews of that data. So let's review how you can move this grid around in almost an infinite number of ways and save that view. So simply, you have the ability to move any column as I'm clicking and moving the bank account column because I want it here. So you have the ability to move any one of these columns. You can eliminate from a view any column, and I'll do that here. I'll simply uncheck all and say I want this column and that column, and I'm going to have that deposit number as well. So now I've changed my view from all columns to a smaller set of data. And in this example, this is the data that we believe pertains to stakeholder A. Also, the power of the grid includes the ability to sort on any column. So here we can see that we're sorting by this little glyph and number 1. We're sorting right now by transaction date. If I hold the control key, actually first I'm going to show you the filtering. If I hit the filter window, which is on the side of every one of the columns, I can choose what items within that column I want to display. So in the bank column here, I'm going to pick a certain number of bank accounts, and I'm going to choose my PNC bank accounts. So here I've selected 3 bank accounts, and you can see my activity change because now my activity is showing just my 3 PNC bank accounts. And back to my earlier statement, I'm sorting by transaction date. If I hold the control key and click another column, I am now creating a secondary sort. So first sort indicated by the 1, transaction date, within transaction date, my source is alphabetically, and you can sort by any number of columns. The last feature of setting up a view is the ability to group. So I can click and drag my bank account, which I know are my PNC bank accounts, and now I can see that I have a subtotal of my 3 bank accounts. I can include additional, in fact, any number of columns to group. So within my bank account, where if I went into this PNC account, I see the transactions that make up this amount. I could also group by entry type. And by doing so now, when I drill into my bank account, I see of that total amount, how it breaks out in terms of entry types, adjustments, interests, non-cash receipts, transfers, etc. And then obviously you can drill in to get that detail. Now, if this is a view that is pertinent to stakeholder A, I can save this view as a new view, and I can call it whatever I want. In this instance, I'm going to say PNC entry type. And note that I can dedicate this particular view to be assigned. So I'm going to say, yes, I want this view to be assigned, and it can be assigned to one or numerous different users within the system. So here, as the main user, I may have a large group of different views that I've created. And again, there's almost an infinite number of different views that you can create by filtering, removing columns, moving columns, sorting columns, and grouping by columns. Now, how do we assign a view to another user? Again, permissions are required to accomplish this task. I have them as the main user, and I'm now going to go into the customization tab. And it's here that I can assign a view. So here's a view of all of my users. I see that there's 2 views that have been established by a user with permission that can be assigned to a view, And here's that PNC entry type that we created. I'm going to scroll down to find my stakeholder A. And here, by clicking stakeholder A, I can assign my Cashbook view PNC entry type that we just made. Note that I can also limit the sources, the receipt types that exist within the system. I can limit that Cashbook view that I'm going to assign by the sources that that particular user has. So two ways to limit the sources. Again, the name of the receipts that exist in the system to a particular user. I can either click filter sources here and say, whatever sources they have the ability to access today, limit their view to that. Or I'm just going to leave it open and note that you could also have created this PNC entry view and filtered on the only sources that this Cashbook view is going to be able to access. Now I'm going to save the assigned view to this user. Now let's log out and we will log back in to our stakeholder A, which is who we logged in at the beginning of this presentation. Now, notice we not only have our receipt entry tab, but we now have a Cashbook tab. As stated, we don't have the ability to add an entry and we don't have the ability to delete an entry, but we do have, and again, let's add a date range that has data. They have the view we created. They can drill into it as we did prior, but they can also change it and create what is called a subview. So for this particular user, stakeholder A, instead of view all columns like we saw with the main user, their view all column is PNC entry type. They cannot bring columns forward that we removed. They can't look at bank accounts that we filtered out or any other filter that we set. But they could remove the grouping and in essence, create their own view all column, which I will do now. So they now have the ability to take the sub view that was created for them and further define it. So I'm going to call this view all. So now stakeholder A has the original grouped view that was created for them. They've created a view all, and they now have the ability to say, well, I want to take this data and make something different out of it. Instead of, say, bank account and transaction date, they may say, I want to group by the sources that are assigned to me. So here are all the sources that were assigned. And again, we could have filtered on these source names, or when we assigned the view, we could have said, only give them what they are allowed to see. This is what this user is allowed to see, but we could have restricted it. We chose not to. Within this source view, we could say, I want to group by deposit number. So now I've created a different view that has source and deposit number. I could filter on my source. And maybe I just want to see for this particular view, beach stickers. And these sources represent different, this is over-the-counter beach stickers. This was paid online. And I can filter based on that. And now I'm creating a new view for beach stickers, which I could save as my beach sticker view. The ability now obviously exists to drill into each of these grouped headings to see what makes up that $7,705. And because I grouped by deposit, I now have the breakout of each deposit that amalgamated equals this $7,705. Obviously, you can drill into each of these deposits and drill further into the actual transaction. So now we've assigned a Cashbook view to another user, given that person, that stakeholder A, the information that pertains to them, and given them a tool now that they can then work with, answering phone calls, reaching out to their board to provide information, eliminating the need to seek maybe the accounting official, the treasurer official, some other financial official to get information that stakeholder A and their office may need. And again, they are not able to add, change, or delete. This is read only. What they do continue to have with this assignable Cashbook view is the ability to create any view, save it, and export it. The most common export being Excel. And what is unique about this export is that this export, because of the way we grouped it and filtered it, is an actual working spreadsheet. So these are actual totals that you can drill into and use for further reporting. And that is how to, one, create a variety of views, really an infinite number of views, the ability to assign those views to your stakeholders and allow them the power of the grid to answer questions, do their cash analytics, and to review their data. Are there any questions? I want to thank everyone for joining today. I hope this was helpful, and please look for Zobrio University sessions that will be coming out to you in the future. Again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. A recording of the webinar will be made available shortly.